just say hi, everyone. Happy Thursday night. I would like to thank first and foremost Argentina for making such amazing wines, and the Zuccardi family for being not only so incredibly talented, but also so gracious to be with us tonight. I would love Gerry from the Argentinian embassy and the consulate to say a few words before we start. I know a lot of you in this crisis are probably missing either home, if that's Argentina, or travel, if you're like anyone else in the food and wine industry. So I would love for you just to give a little taste of home and introduce the embassy staff who's here with us tonight. Oh, unmute Gerry, Christina. Wait, Gerry, wait, you're muted.
Unmute.
Yeah, you're good now. You're good now. Yeah. I have that feature for my husband, by the way. I just pressed the button. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. I am Gerry Díaz Bartolomé. I'm the Deputy Chief of Mission of the Embassy of Argentina. And here with me from my team is Pablo Rodríguez Brizuela, the Head of Economic and Trade Affairs, and Luz, who's also a diplomat in charge of promotion within that section of the embassy. So we can't be happier than to be partnering with Zuccardi Valle de Uco in this activity, and of course with wine sellers. Thank you, Christina, David, and Calvert, Woodley. Thank you, Jen, again. It is always fun and very interesting to work with Zuccardi wines. That, as many of you know, has been selected as one of the best wineries all over the world in 2019. And today we have the one and only Sebastian Zuccardi that will walk us through some of the best wines they produce. Congratulations.
So Gerry, if you wanted to tell our guests tonight one thing about Argentina that they probably don't know, but they should know, what is it?
Not tango then, or beef, because that's...
We know that. We know that.
Wines, actually. Our wines are really good, as you may know. No, but it's a wonderful country, but I will be biased if I embark on a discussion on this. I'd rather give the floor or the Zoom floor to Sebastian to explain what our best and precious varietals are. He knows a lot more about
Well, thank you, Gerry. I really appreciate you and Luz and Pablo Jose for taking your Thursday night to hang out with us. Before I introduce Sebastian Zuccardi, I'd like to introduce Jen. I keep wanting to call you Leg because that's her maiden name, but Jen Sanders. She's the assistant wine buyer at Calvert Woodley, which is the largest independently owned fine wine shop in Washington, D.C., located in Upper Northwest on Connecticut Avenue. And I would love for you to meet Jen, and Jen, just to tell us a little bit about what's going on at Calvert Woodley now and all this craziness.
Hi, everyone. Great to see y'all. I haven't done one of these Zoom virtual tastings, so it's really awesome to see all these faces on here. So obviously it's been a very challenging time for many businesses around the country, around the world. So Calvert Woodley is coping and trying to figure it out as we're going along. We're offering, curbside pickup and delivery only, trying to social distance in the store with staff and having less staff. So it's been just a learning curve for everybody. These virtual tastings we've gotten a lot of opportunities, and we've had to kind of pick and choose what we can handle, especially with the amount of staff that we have and how busy we are. And so we were really excited to pair with Zuccardi because we have a great relationship with them. We have a great relationship with Christy and Christina. And Michael has been to the Argentinian embassy many times for events and just loves it. And we wanted to do an actual dinner and tasting at the embassy, which will be on hold for a little bit.
It'll happen.
Yeah, but it will happen once all the vaccines are out and everything. But we are really excited. The wines are big sellers in the store. They're fantastic. Michael's actually been there, and we're just really excited and happy that we could work with everybody to have this happen. So.
Well, thank you, Jen. We really appreciate you sponsoring tonight. These events can't happen without solid retail partners who have integrity and follow through on every promise they make to the wineries and also to all of the customers. So we really appreciate you participating and being such a true professional. So I'd like to introduce Sebastian Zuccardi. So I had the opportunity to go to Zuccardi in 2018 to visit with the Zuccardi family. I've sold their wines for over a decade, and I have to tell you that they are the real deal. They make incredible estate-driven wines at such a broad range of price points. They are innovators. The way they treat their employees, the way they treat us as suppliers, wine sellers as the importer, it's really special. And they are a true family operation. I led a dinner with Calvert Woodley a few years ago with Sebastian's father, Jose. I was so intimidated. Jose is like a legend in the wine business, not just in Argentina, not in Mendoza, but in the world of wine. He has made a name for himself that really is absolute top tier, first growth, gentleman of the vine, just absolutely incredible. And I've had an opportunity to meet the whole family. So Sebastian is involved in the winery. Julia, his sister, is involved in the winery. His brother makes the olive oil. They work so beautifully together. I don't know behind the scenes, Sebastian, you can tell us that. But it's just amazing to see a family really connecting and making something beautiful. And really, when you invest in the future like they do, it's a belief that the future is something beautiful, because they think, and you can tell the way they do things, in 50-year spans, 60, 70-year-old spans, making wineries in beautiful regions like the Uco Valley, pushing the limits of their regions and the wine world in general. And I'm just so proud to have Sebastian here tonight. Sebastian has a formal presentation and we'll taste through the 4 wines. I'll interject a little bit. And then after, if you all want to stick around, I made a little slideshow from my visit with the family that's a little bit more warm and fuzzy and just how awesome Argentina is. So Sebastian, without further pause, thank you so much for being here tonight. You're just a rock star. Kathy Morgan, MS, said you are the future of Argentina. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Christy. Thank you, everybody, for the introduction. And hello. First, my English is not perfect. So please, if you don't understand something, feel free to ask through the chat or connect your audio and ask. Second thing, every question that you have, please tell me. I will give my opinion. And remember that every time that you listen, a producer is the cosmovision of one person making wine in one place. Wine is the most diverse beverage in the world, and wine depends a lot from where the wine is, from where the grapes are coming from, and who makes the wine. And for me, this is very, very important. So everything that you are going to listen tonight is the one producer making wine in one place. Like Christy told, I'm the 3rd generation in Zuccardi family making wine, and I prepare a presentation because I will try that you travel to my area. I will try with this presentation that you can understand which are the key factors in the area where I live and why the wines that we make are so special, because the area where we cultivate is so special. So let me, wait a minute, I will put the presentation.
So while Sebastian is pulling up the presentation, you all can start to prepare your first wine. So you'll want to start with the Zuccardi Tarantes. So go ahead and open it. It should be a little chilled. If it's not, no worries. Just go ahead and drink it as is. You'll just get a lot more of the floral notes, the warmer the temperature of the wine.
Perfect. Okay, first, I think when we talk about wine, we have to talk a little bit about the history. And we have to talk a little bit about the history of the place where I cultivate, but also about the history of my family. Wine is an activity that needs generation. learn about the place, has all the knowledge, and develop a place, need a lot of work. When you think in Burgundy that, for example, I have a map on my back, all the work in divide areas took like 800 years. So when we think in wine, we need to think about generations. The picture that you are seeing is my grandfather and my grandmother. And if I'm making wine, it's because they decided to put their life in this. Where we live, and I will show you some pictures, is a desert. So the only way to cultivate is with irrigation. And my grandfather, he had a building company, but his obsession was how to use the water in a more efficient way. So in his building company, he developed a very efficient irrigation system. And he bought a property where I'm now, near to Mendoza. But his idea was not to make wine. His idea was to show how his irrigation system worked and sold his irrigation system to other growers. But luckily for me, he fell in love with viticulture. He discovered that he was an agricultor, and he continued planting more vineyards. I put the picture of my grandfather with my grandmother because she had been very, very important in the family, because they together developed the family winery. This is my father, because then my father, when my father joined the family, he decided to put his life in the agriculture. He decided not to be part of the building company, and he decided to put all his life in wine. So the big growing of the family was when my father took this decision. And today we are the third generation working in the family winery. That you can see, the picture is a little bit old, so I'm younger than in the picture than now. But
Sebastian,
you can see that in the third generation we are three, and the three of us started a new activity for the family. So in one, we can say that each of us are like founders of the company. And this is very, very important, because we feel that we are not doing what our father and grandfather did. We are refunding what they started.
Sebastian,
So I joined.
Sebastian,
Yes,
can I just interrupt for a sec?
of course.
Can you please tell us a little bit about the personalities of your dad, your sister, and your brother?
Yes, I will explain when I talk about my father. He's very passionate. When you talk with him, he's really passionate about the area, and he's full of energy. You can believe the quantity of energy. So he's all the time thinking how to make new things, and pushing, and very involved in the manage of the winery. But he runs today all the commercial areas of the family, because his passion really is the relationship with people. So all his energy is moving out of him, and he likes to have great relationship. I started in the family. I will not talk about my characteristic. I will explain what I do, and you are going to say that. You're going to see that. I joined the family in '99, and I decided to put my life in wine. But I moved the family production area from where my grandfather started to a new area, that is where we are making our wines and where we have our winery, that is the Uco Valley, that I will explain you later. But today I started working with my family, and I said to my father, I want to cultivate in that area, because this area, that is the Uco Valley, is closer to the mountain, and I'm looking for the influence of the mountain. So today, all the winery is in the Uco Valley, and I will explain you later why the Uco Valley is so special. Julia, that is in the middle, Julia studied nothing relationship with wine. She studied English teacher and English translator, but when she finished the career, she discovered that her passion was more involved with the gastronomy. So she decided to join the family working in the hospitality. So today we have 2 wineries where we receive close to 60,000 people per year. Not now because we are with the lockdown, unfortunately, and we have 3 restaurants. And Julia runs all the hospitality of the family. And hospitality for us is very important. And all of you are welcome if you want to visit us when Argentina open again. But we try that everybody that visit us has an experience about the area where we cultivate and a Zuccardi experience that can feel the values and the cosmovision and the philosophy of the wines that we make. So we have also 3 restaurants in our property. And Miguel, that is the youngest, Miguel brought a new activity for the family, not the new activity for the region, because I will explain you, but he bring a new activity that is olive oil. In the area, we have very old olive trees, and olive oil is part of the tradition of our culture. But in the family, nobody makes olive oil. And Miguel decided to put his life, his heart in olive oil production, and today he is the best olive oil producer in the country. I can tell you because I'm not making, but what he's doing is moving the limits of what we expected about olive oil in the region. Why I'm saying that is a new activity for the family, but not a new activity for the area? Because for me, if you think in Argentina, the people think that wine is a quite new activity for Argentina. But you know that the countries in general are divided like old world wine countries and new world wine countries. And in general, Europe are the old world wine countries because they have a long tradition. But when you see the South Hemisphere and you talk about the new wine world countries, you talk about Chile, you talk about Argentina, you talk about Australia, you talk about South Africa, you talk about these countries, Uruguay, but when you see Argentina and all these, in theory, new world wine countries, Argentina is completely different. We have a very, very long tradition in wine, but Argentina is quite new exporting. So I like to say that we are old world in new world. And why I say this? Because the viticulture arrived close to 200 years ago and arrived to Argentina because we had a big immigration from Italy and from Spain. And these people who came to Argentina have the tradition to drink wine and to make wine, and also olive oil. But for many years, all the wine that we did was drinking in the country. So until the 90s, Argentina didn't export wine because all the wine was drinking in Argentina. So I like to say that Argentina is more old world than new world because we have a culture about wine. Our national beverage is wine, and also the social structure of our vineyards are like old world. It's full of small growers cultivating vineyards and making wine. So in order to understand this, Argentina is the 5th world largest wine producer, but is the 10th world largest wine exporter. Why? Because 75% of the wine that we produce, we drink in the country. And if you see, we have close to 1,000 wineries in our area because it's full of small producers that make wine because it's part of the culture of the country. So when you talk about Argentina, you have to know that it's a country that has been making wine for a long time, that wine is part of the culture and is quite new exporting.
So Sebastian, I don't know if you've seen what's going on in America, but we really need a drink. So is there any way you could describe your Zuccardi Series A Torrontés so people can drink or taste while you speak?
I need 2 minutes because I'm going to the map. Perfect. And I need to introduce the Torrontés through the map. Perfect. So give me 2 minutes and we are start tasting.
We're very thirsty.
When you see a map of Argentina, Argentina is a long country in South America. You know, it's not so big like US, but it's long. from the south to the north, you have a big distance.
Perfect.
If you see, we have the Pacific Ocean in the west. We have Chile, we have the Andes Mountain that cross all Argentina in the west, and then we have the Atlantic Ocean in the east. The areas that you see with colors are the cultivating areas in Argentina. If you see, 97% of the wines are cultivating near to the mountain. So, and I will explain you later why the mountain is so important in our wines. But in general, we produce in Mendoza, that is this area that is in the middle west of Argentina. Mendoza produces 80% of the wine of the country. But I make only one wine out of Mendoza, that is the Torrontés that you have. And the Torrontés come from the north of Argentina. You know, every time that you go to the north, you are moving to a warmer weather because you are going to be closer to the Ecuador line. So every time that you go to a warmer area in Argentina, you need to look for altitude. So this wine comes from an area that is in feet, is 7,000 feet of altitude. And when we talk, if you see the bottle, and when you grab the bottle, the wine says Zuccardi Serie A. Serie A means Serie Argentina. Why? Because in this range of wine, we try to do the 3 main important grapes from Argentina, from the 3 areas that we think that grows better. And Torrontés, let me, 1 second. Wait a minute, sorry. Okay, can you see me there? Torrontés is a native grape in Argentina. In the only country that you are going to find Torrontés is in Argentina. Why? Because Torrontés was a cross that happened in our area. And was a cross that happened with 2 Spanish grapes, very old. One was Muscat de Alejandría, and the other was a grape that we call Criolla, and in Criolla, and in US you call Mission. And naturally, nobody knows if it was something that happened in the nature, but this Torrontés was a cross of these 2 grapes. So in the only country that you are going to find Torrontés is in Argentina. And Torrontés is very planted, is very spread in Argentina because it's our main important white grape. So if you have the glass, for me, a very important thing with Torrontés is that when you taste the Torrontés grape, you never will forget Torrontés. When you smell the Torrontés, this wine smells like the grape. So it's very unique. And I like Torrontés for 2 things. First, because it's unique from Argentina, but second, because when you smell, you are not going to say this is a Chardonnay or this is a Sauvignon Blanc. This is Torrontés. When you smell Torrontés, you can immediately understand that Torrontés is very aromatic. And in all the aromas, you have a lot of like muscat aromas, but also you have a citrus side that is part, and also a very flower side. So you have a lot of intensity, but a lot of freshness at the same time. I don't know if everybody has the wine in the glass.
Yes, we do.
And when you smell the Torrontés at the beginning, you think that will be sweet. But when you put in the mouth, it's completely dry. And this is one of the most important things for me of Torrontés. So remember these 3 things. Torrontés is the native grape in Argentina. It's one of the only native grape that we have. It's the most planted white grape in Argentina. When you smell Torrontés, you can confuse. It's a grape that has a lot of identity. And then the 3rd thing that for me is magic of Torrontés is that they match very, very well with food. For me, with ocean food, works fantastic. And I make the Torrontés, like I told you. Let me come back to this. I make the Torrontés from the north of Argentina, from an area that the name is Salta, because I feel the identity of the Torrontés there is very special.
Sebastian,
This is all vineyard.
we
Yes?
have Luz on the call from, she is a diplomat for the Embassy of Argentina, and she's an
Yes.
awesome taster. I wonder if we could have Luz tell us what she loves about Torrontés. Christina, can you unmute Luz?
I'm so sorry. Absolutely. I shall do so.
Thank you. Luz, just press unmute.
There you go.
I was telling you, got me off guard.
Oh, I'm so sorry, but you're so awesome. And I love your passion for Argentina and for Argentinian wines. So what do you like about Torrontés?
I think Torrontés is great, as Sebastian was saying, with every food. It's very light. I like how it makes you feel great, and it doesn't lose when you're pairing with food the taste of the food. So it's a perfect combination, and I think it's sort of flowery, for me at least. And it's great. It gives me a great feeling inside of me.
Veronica, who's attending, she just said great for Asian food too. And absolutely, Washington, D.C. has incredible, incredible Asian food. And it's one of Riesling and Torrontés are my two go-tos.
Many times, the problem of Torrontés is that nobody knows, because in the only country that you can find Torrontés is in Argentina. But for me, it's the magic, because it's unique. And when I drink a wine, I want that every wine tell me three histories: the history of the place, where the wine is coming from, the history of who makes the wine, and the history of the year. And when you talk about Torrontés, you are talking about uniqueness.
Yeah. Sebastian, I won't
Okay.
interrupt you for at least 5 minutes. Go ahead.
No, don't worry. Feel free to interrupt me anytime that you think. But let's come back to Mendoza, where I live. I want to show you a picture of where we have our winery. And I want to talk a little bit about the concept of mountain wines. Where I live, I told you, and I've shown you again the map, from the north to the south, we have the Andes mountain. So we really live near to the mountain. This is our winery in the Uco Valley. Look at how close it is from the mountain and how high is the mountain. We have in Mendoza the highest mountain outside of the Himalayas, in order that you have an idea how high is the range that we have in front of us. And I like to say that we make mountain wines for many things. First, because the mountain is the main influence in our weather. Second, because we receive all the water that we use to irrigate from the mountain. Third, because the soils where we cultivate come from the mountain. And fourth, because we are mountain people. Everything that happens in our way to be is in very relationship with the mountain. So when you go, for example, to Galicia, that they cultivate near to the ocean, they talk about ocean wines. But because we cultivate near to the mountain, and the mountain is so important in terms of identity of the place and us, I like to say mountain wines. And let me explain a little bit about mountain wines. First, I have to go to a picture of the area where I live. And I want that you see in this picture, look at how green is Chile, because we have the influence of the Pacific Ocean. But when we arrive to the mountain cut all the ocean influence. So where we live, that is this area, and I put in green the cultivating areas, is a desert. It's a desert where we have no ocean influence from the Pacific and no ocean influence from the Atlantic, because we are very far. And in Mendoza is cultivating in different areas. We are going to concentrate in the Uco Valley, because it's the area where we cultivate. And why we are going to concentrate in the Uco Valley, and why is the area where we cultivate? Because if I want to make mountain wines, I need to go to cultivate to the area that is closer to the mountain. So if you see, let me go a little bit. So if I will talk about mountain wines, I want to talk about the weather, about the water, and about the soils. And when we talk about the weather, our weather, like I told you, is a high altitude desert where altitude is the main important factor, but light is very, very important. So I like to show this picture where you have the Pacific Ocean and you have crossing the mountain, the area where we are cultivating. So why is a high altitude desert? Because every cold and wet wind that comes from the Pacific, snow or rain in the mountain and cross very dry. So when you see Chile, wines from Chile and wines from Argentina, the two areas are very close, but the wines are completely different because the weather is completely different because the mountain divide us. I'm not saying that one area is better and the other area is worse. I'm saying only that you have completely two different situations in the different side of the mountain. So one thing that you need to know that we live in a desert. Look at this is a picture of our area without irrigation. You can see that without irrigation it's impossible to cultivate nothing. Why is that I like to say high altitude desert? And altitude is the main important factor. And I put this picture because I want that you see how close we are from the Andes. But you have to know that every time that you climb, every time that you go up, you are moving to a cooler weather. Yes? So remember that altitude means cooler weather. Every time that you rise, you are going to a cooler weather. So if I come back to a map of the Uco Valley, this is a map of the Uco Valley where I put the lines, that the lines show the altitude, we can see how in the Uco Valley we can move from 2,800 feet to 6,000 feet in very few kilometers. And what happened every time that I'm moving closer to the Andes? I'm going up. And every time that I go up, I'm moving to a cooler weather. So remember that the main important factor in our place is altitude, and altitude means cooler weather. And the other thing that is very important in the weather is we have more than 300 days with blue sky. It's amazing. Really, living in Mendoza is a great place because you have a lot of sun, so you have a lot of energy. And this sun is create that the wines that we make are very pure. And also we have a lot of difference of temperature during the morning and the day. A lot of difference. So when we talk about the weather, we talk about the altitude and the light especially. The mountain, like I told you, create a desert where we cultivate. Yes, so we live in a place where it's impossible to cultivate without irrigation. But also the mountain give us the solution because we use the snow melt to irrigate our vineyards. But in order that you can understand how dramatic is our desert, the water that we have is only enough to cultivate 3% of the surface. The other is not possible to cultivate because you have no water. And the third thing that the mountain gives to us are the soils. You know, I'm very passionate about the soils, and I have been working about soil studies for a long time. So I think that in the last 10 years, I spent more time underground than outside. Because when you have a place, how you explain the place, you explain through the weather, first through the landscape, second through the weather, and third through the soils. But in the same weather, different kind of soils gives completely different kind of wines. But give me 5 minutes in order to explain why the soils are so different.
Okay, Sebastian, real quick.
Yes.
So what wine should people be opening now?
I think we can take together the Malbec Q and the Cabernet Franc Q.
So people should be opening their Malbec and their Cabernet Franc Q as Sebastian's talking to us about soils.
Yes, I think are two wines that we can taste together. Any question?
A lot of comments about the Torontes being stunning and floral and a glass of sunshine. And then a lot of comments about how beautiful the landscape is and just how lucky we all are to be here with you tonight.
No, and the pictures are not enough to show how beautiful is the place where we live. We are very lucky. So when this crazy time finish, you have to come to visit us. Let me come back to the presentation. Soils are one of the most important things, and all our soils are, are alluvial soils. What means alluvial soils? Means that millions of years ago, we had in the mountain big glaciers, then the earth heated, all these glaciers melt, and the water came from the mountain to the flat areas. And when the water came, the water had a lot of energy, so could move many stones from the Andes to the areas where we are walking and cultivating. So how to recognize an alluvial soil? First, when you see this kind of round stones, immediately you have to say this is an alluvial soil. Why? Because all these stones came rolling with the water from the Andes mountain and create these soils where we are going to cultivate. But all the alluvial soils are the same? No, because the alluvial soil is the way that the soils were formed. But the alluvial soils can be very diverse. And this is very important in what we are talking about. And which are the sources of diverse? The sources of diverse, first, and let me come back, is the mountain. When you see this mountain, you think that is one chain. But when you see a satellite picture, and let me move, when you see a satellite picture of the mountain, you can see that you have different mountain chains. And I need all your imagination. Imagine that before that these mountains were there, two plates crash. And when these two plates crash, this mountain go up. You have to imagine that part of the Andes mountain were under the water and part of the Andes mountain was out of the water. So the diversity of materials that you have in this mountain is huge. So depend from where the alluvial movement come is the kind of material that we are going to have. For example, one thing that you can find in our area, and I'm not trying to be too technique, but for me it's important that you can understand why our place is so special. But one thing, for example, that you can find that our rocks inside are granite, that this is a volcanic movement, and outside is recovering by calcium carbonate that come from the bottom of the ocean. So this is a combination that is unique, and it's a combination that is very difficult to find in other places in the world. So what we have is very unique, but it's very diverse because depend from where the movement come from the Andes is the material that we are going to have. But also in the same alluvial fan, it's not the same to be close from the beginning of the alluvial fan, in the middle, or at the end. Because when you see how was the alluvial movement, we can see that at the beginning, the water had a lot of energy, so could move big stones. And every time that the water spread and opened, lost energy. So in the middle, you can find stones, but smaller. And in the end, you are not going to find stones. What I'm trying to tell you that when you combine this diversity of altitude and this diversity of soils, you are right to understand that different places in the Uco Valley create completely different conditions. And different places in the Uco Valley can make completely different wines. But look at it, look at what I'm showing to you. I'm showing, this is the Uco Valley. Sorry, I'm moving in the other direction. This is the Uco Valley. Look at how the Uco Valley is divided in many different villages. I will tell you many names tonight, but I don't want that you remember every name. I want that you can understand the diversity that we have in one area. Because in general, people think that Argentina, when thinking about Argentina, think immediately about Malbec. And it's okay, because Malbec is our main important grape. But it's not possible to explain what happened in the area talking only about the grape. When we talk about the grape, I like to say we talk about the vehicle to express the places. But if we want to talk about the uniqueness, if we want to talk about the things that happen in the place, we need to talk about the name of the places. So when you see different places in the Uco Valley, you can see that you have a unique combination of altitude and a unique combination of soils. So what happens if I make wines from San Pablo, from La Consulta, from Los Chacalles, from Paraje Altamira, from Gualtallarí, and I only put in the label the grape, Malbec, and I give you 5 different wines that only say Malbec? What I'm making a commodity. So for me, it's very important, the origin. It's very important from where the grape's coming, because when you talk about the place, you're talking about this unique combination between the weather, between the soils. So my challenge is that every time that you grab a bottle of Zuccardi, you are going to find a lot of information about the place where the grapes are coming. Let me come back.
So Sebastian, if we were to drink a wine now, would it be the Cab Franc or the Malbec?
The Malbec first. You know why I choose in order Malbec and then Cabernet Franc is because the structure of the wine. Malbec in general has less tannins, is more juicier, is juicier. So I prefer to drink or to taste first the Malbec and then go to the Cabernet Franc where you have a lot of structure.
So
you know that Argentina, yes?
Tell us about the Q Malbec.
Okay, you know that Argentina is very famous for Malbec. Malbec is our flagship in terms of the grape, but really is because when you walk the areas, when you make the wines and when you taste the grapes, you can see the adaptation that Malbec has to the place. So if I have to choose only one opportunity to choose a grape in my area, I choose Malbec. If you grab the label, now you are a specialist in the Uco Valley. If you grab the label, you're going to see that you have a lot of information because this is a Malbec that comes from the Uco Valley. Yes? So when you say Uco Valley, you're talking about the highest area in Mendoza. So the area that has more influence of the Andes mountain. And the second thing that you see next to Uco Valley is Paraje Altamira and Vista Flores. This is talking about the villages that we have in the Uco Valley. So every time that I make a wine, I give a lot of information about where is the place where the grapes are coming. For me, every wine has to talk about the place and the producer, or the producer and the place. So Zuccardi, Uco Valley, Paraje Altamira, and Vista Flores is talking about the uniqueness of this wine because it's made by a family in one special place. If I told you, if I have to talk about this Malbec, I have to talk about, again, about mountain wines. And if I told you that we live in a very high altitude desert, and I told you that we have cold nights and very sunny days, the first thing that we are going to discover is that the color is very high. And this is naturally in our area. And this is because this difference of temperature between the night and between the day. And also because the grapes has a very thick skin because the vine is trying to protect the seeds to the sunlight. So our color is very pure naturally. But the second thing I told you, when you talk about the wines, you have to talk about the landscape, you have to talk about the weather, and you have to talk about the soil. So I like when we smell the wine that we don't have only red fruit and black fruit. I like that the wines also talk the expression of the place. And where we live and when we have the vineyards that I show you a picture is full of natural vegetation. And all this natural vegetation has a lot of influence in the wine. For me, the wine is like a picture of the place. So what you are going to find, you are going to find that you have red fruit, you have a little bit of black fruit, but also you are going to have a lot of herbs and floral expression. And this is, for me, how is the expression of Malbec when you reduce the overripe, when you reduce the over extraction, and when you reduce the over oak.
Sebastian, if you were to talk about the difference between a traditional Cahors Malbec in France and an Argentinian Malbec, what would you say the main differences are?
I think that one of the main differences is the structure. Cahors has very hard and tannins. Is because the weather, that is a wetter and a cooler weather. So for me, Malbec from Argentina, you have more balance, it's juicier in general. You have really Malbec found the place in Argentina, and the balance that you can find in Argentina many times is difficult to find in Cahors. But for me, are much more easier to drink. Our wine because you have more balance, and this balance is because you have very good acidity, but also at the same time it's very juicy.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a question on the chat board, yes. Sebastian. Curtis is asking, hi Curtis, would you say the number 3 Argentinian wine is Bonarda after the 2 obvious ones? I don't mean in terms of production quantity, but in reputation.
You know, Bonarda is very important in Argentina because it's the second most planted red grape and has been planting for a long time and has been developing a lot. For many years, we didn't know which was the origin of Bonarda. We thought that the origin was Italy, and we thought that the Bonarda that we have in Argentina is the same that the Bonarda that you can see in Piemonte. But today, after many DNA studies, we know that Bonarda came from France and found a place here and developed a lot. But for many years was considered in Argentina a grape that was for bulk wines, was not considered a great grape. But this is something that has been changing a lot in the last 10 years. And we did a big work there because my first wine that I made in the family was a Bonarda that has the name of my grandmother, that is Emma Zuccardi Bonarda. For me, Bonarda is a fantastic grape that has a great adaptation to the place, but needs more studies, need more work. So, for example, one thing that I did is planting the Bonarda in the Uco Valley. Bonarda was very planting in low altitude areas, but was not very planting in high altitude areas. But when you cultivate in high altitude areas, it's fantastic what the grape has, the wine that you can make with the grape. So for me, Bonarda is part of our culture because was planting and replanting for generation and producers because the adaptation of the place, but needs more development in terms of places, in terms of where cultivate the Bonarda.
That's awesome. Thank you, Sebastian.
One thing that we're going to talk a little bit in deeper about vinification when we taste the last wine, but you know that for many years, every time that someone has to talk about wine and explain why one wine was more expensive than the other, talk about the oak. For me, I like to say that we cultivate wines. But the most important thing is the place where the grapes are coming from and how you treat or manage the vineyard. And then in the winery, you need to be careful and you need to keep this potential of the place where the grapes are coming. But never, if you are not cultivating in a great place, if you are not doing a great viticulture, it's difficult to make a great wine. So my way to see the winery is that the winery is the place where we express the origin of the grape. So we need to treat in a very careful way, but we need to reduce any impact or anything that make that the wine talk about the technique in the winery. And one thing that I reduced a lot was the use of oak, because let me come back to the presentation. If I show you a wine of this 5 different areas. But then the winery, I over oak. We are going to talk in the wine about the oak, not about the place. And the oak is not part of the terroir. So something that I put a lot of attention is talk about balance. So 3 things that I work a lot is reduce the overripe, because when you overripe, the alcohol go too high, and these areas you can feel closer. Reduce the over extraction and reduce the use of the overuse of oak. I like to say that I'm a drinker before a winemaker, and my passion is drink wine. If you come to my house, I have wine from all over the world and wine from other producers, because I don't like to drink only my wines at home, because if you drink only your wines, you're not going to learn nothing. So I'm all the time opening wine from all over the world. And when I open a bottle of wine, I'm looking for 3 things. First, that give me pleasure, because we can talk many things about wine, but pleasure is the most important thing when you open a bottle of wine. When I open a bottle of wine, I want to drink the bottle. Second thing is that I want to travel through the wine. I want that the wine tell me a history about the place where the grapes are coming, a history of who makes the wine, and the history of the year that the wine was made. And the third thing that I like that happened with the wine is that the wine match very well with food. So when I make a wine, I put a lot of attention in these 3 things. I'm looking for balance. I'm looking for wines that give me a lot of pleasure and wines that I can match with food. So when you taste my wines and when you taste this Zuccardi Q Malbec, I like that in the mouth, you are not going to feel any aggressive wine. You are not going to feel a lot of, I like that you can feel complexity, balance, that the end of the mouth has acidity, a little bit of salinity and juicy at the same time. And this is for me my goal, because when you have balance, you can match better with food. You want that we go to the Cabernet Franc? Okay, the third wine, again, if you see the bottle and if you see the label, again, you have the grape, but below the grape, you have Uco Valley, but near to Uco Valley, you have the 2 villages where the grapes are coming. So this wine comes from 2 villages in the Uco Valley, that the 2 villages are Paraje Altamira, that is this that you have here, and San Pablo. These 2 areas are areas that are completely different, because San Pablo is very high, it's 6,000 feet of altitude, and Altamira is 3,200 or 400 feet of altitude, and look at how different are the soils. But I like to blend these 2 areas, because one, for me, San Pablo, because the altitude is the backbone of the wine, and Altamira, because the kind of soil is the flesh of the wine. So I like to make a wine from the Uco Valley, because give me the possibility of blend 2 areas that has 2 different expressions. A little bit about Cabernet Franc. You know, for many years, or if you talk about Argentina, you say immediately Malbec, and then you say Torrontés, and then you say Bonarda. And really, I believe that the future is not on the grapes, it's in the places. When people ask me in general, what is coming after Malbec, I like to say more Malbec, but communicating in a completely different way, communicating through the places. But it's not that the only grape that has a good adaptation to the place is Malbec. But I believe that the grape is the vehicle to express the place. But the grape that we have been discovering in the last period of time that has a great adaptation is the Cabernet Franc. Cabernet Franc is a grape that is not very spread in the world. In general, in France, you can find in Loire or in Bordeaux, that arrived to Argentina not many time ago, but because the adaptation that the grape has to the place and to the weather and to the soil has been growing a lot. And it's a grape that I like. I feel that the adaptation that Cabernet Franc has to the place is better than, for example, Cabernet Sauvignon in Argentina. But in order that you have an idea about how big is Malbec, we have more than 40,000 hectares. and Cabernet Franc, we have less than 1,500 hectares. So Cabernet Franc is something that is quite new, but I like the adaptation that has to the place, so I decided to make a Q Cabernet Franc.
Sebastian, do you mind if we pause for a minute just for a little bit of Cab Franc education in general? Because I think it's like
Yes.
it's a grape that's, you know, not as familiar to people. So I taught WSET for 8 years, and this is a grape that always had a lot of questions. So the first thing I would tell my students is that Cab Franc is the parent grape of Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot. Just to kind of like put it into perspective, worldwide, 132,000 acres are planted. And when we're talking about like tasting descriptions of Cab Franc, the common ones are strawberry, red plum, like gravel, kind of like chili pepper and roasted pepper. In warm climates, it comes across as like a black raspberry, and in cool climates, like a sour cherry. It's in the Bordeaux blends. It's used in the blending as a like support. So it's really unique and fun to see it 100% on its own. In California, there are only a few producers that make an exclusively like Cab Franc blend, or I'm sorry, exclusively Cab Franc label, like Lang & Reed. So it's a really fun thing, and I'm really excited to see a winery like Zuccardi really embracing it, because it's like an educational tool for all of us.
And what I was saying is the adaptation to the place is fantastic. So like Christy say about the expression, you're going to have more herbs in the wine, because San Pablo, that is an area that is at 6,000 feet of altitude, is a very cold area. So you have all the expression of this, a little bit like bell pepper, but not too much, come from this side. And from Altamira, that is a lower altitude area, you have a little bit more the red fruit program. So this is the match that we have. And the great thing is that many times Cabernet Franc could be too green, but in our weather, where we have a lot of sunlight, all this green side is disappear because the sunlight that we have. So in general, the Cabernet Franc that we are going to have in Argentina is much more balanced, and you have a lot of complexity. This Cabernet Franc was fermenting in concrete, that we are going to talk a little bit about concrete, but was aging in oak. So I'm not saying no oak. Do you remember that I talked that avoid over oak? But I'm not saying no oak. I'm saying balance. And this wine was aging 100% in oak, but not in new oak. Was aging in used oak. So when you smell, you're not going to talk about the oak. You are going to talk more about the expression of the grape and the expression of the place. But for me, the oak is a good material because it's a natural material where wine can age. Let's continue. Before to talk about the last wine, I want to show you a little bit our winery. Let me move fast of all our vineyards and go to our winery. I told you that where we live, or the wines that we make are mountain wines. So when we built our winery, we tried not to compete with the mountain, we tried to be part of the mountain. So we built a winery inspiring in the Andes mountain. So when you are near to the winery, you can see that the winery is integrated to the Andes. And the other thing that we did is that we built all the winery with materials from our vineyard. So if you see the walls, that the walls are part like the mountain, all the walls were built with stones from the vineyard, and the concrete was made with sand, water, and stones from our vineyard. So the winery is part of the mountain, but also the winery was built with materials that come from our vineyard. And when you go inside of the winery, you are going to find that all the winery is made with concrete vats. Why concrete vats? The first thing that I have to tell you is that when my grandfather started the winery, he started with concrete. Then my father moved to stainless steel, and now I'm coming back to concrete. And when you see the old wineries in Mendoza, you can see that all the old wineries were made with concrete. So the first thing that I have to tell you is that I'm not doing nothing new. What I'm doing is come back to the future. It's taking old techniques to go to the future. But why I like concrete? First, because the concrete vats that we have were built with sand, stone, and water from our property. So the connection that we have between the vineyard and the winery is a lot. The wines ferment in a material that come from our vineyard. But many other things that are very important for me in concrete is, first, we save a lot of energy because the thickness of a concrete vat is 13 centimeters. When you see a stainless steel tank, you have few millimeters. And I told you that in our area, we have very cold nights and warm days. So when you work with the stainless steel, you need to warm and cold, warm and cold. When you work with concrete, you isolate a little bit what is happening outside and what is happening inside of the vat. The second thing that the concrete gives to us is that through the wall, because you have nothing inside, the wine is in touch with the concrete, you can have a micro-oxygenation. And this micro-oxygenation is very important during the aging. So you have oxygen that cross the wall and go to the wine. And this is very important for the aging. Another thing that for me is crucial is if you see our concrete vats, all is round. It's round in this shape and it's round in this shape. Why? Because I don't want to have corners in the concrete vat. Because when you have a corner, it's difficult to work, and always you have you don't work in the same way. So I try that all my concrete vats are round, because I feel that when you work in round, you have more movement. And also because if you go to the nature, you are not going to find a lot of square shapes. In general, all the shapes has curves. And I told you, I use oak, but I use used oak and big sizes oak. Why? Because when you put your wine in big sizes, you have less contact in terms of square meters of oak with the wine. So I work with 500 liters barrels, that is the double size of a normal barrel. And if you see at the bottom, I'm working with a big cask that were very traditional in the area. In order that you have an idea why I use, look at, this is the vineyard where the winery is. When I planted this vineyard, I took out 1,000 trucks with the stones. And then I used all these trucks to plant, to build the winery. So for me, it's very important. I believe that I'm a viticulture. I believe that my main connection is with the vineyard. But I wanted to make a winery that has a very strong connection with the place where I'm cultivating. And the wine that we are going to taste now is Concreto. Concreto in Spanish means concrete. That is the same material that the concrete vats were made. And this wine is a very special wine for me because this wine was the first wine that I did in the new winery. This wine was a revolution for me because I really understood that the quality of a wine has no any relationship with oak, has a very strong relationship with the place where the grapes are coming. I also understood that Malbec was not, we thought that was 10 years ago, that was something very concentrated, very alcoholic, very powerful, that I understood that it's possible to make Malbec with more finesse, with more elegance. And also was a wine that changed for many people the way to see Malbec. And in order that you understand how I make this wine, It's a selection of the most stoniest soils of the property. I told you that the alluvial soils create a lot of diversity because the alluvial movements were very disorganized. So what happened in our property? When you move from one place 10 meters or 15 meters, the soils change. So to make this wine, I do a selection inside of my property. I only choose the most stoniest soils in order that you remember, how are the soils in the area. I want that you can see these pictures in terms of the quantity of stones, but also that you can see this. And also, I come back to this, the soils where we make the soils where the grapes grow that we use to make this wine are very, very stony. And we do a selection inside of the vineyard and we only harvest the most stoniest soils in the property. Then we vinify like old times. We vinify with whole bunch and we crush with our feet. So looking not to use a lot of technology, make in a very simple way. And then the wine was fermented and aging in concrete. So you have no oak contact in this wine. And which was the challenge? The challenge was show the place like the place is, but put in front of the wine the texture. Because the soils where we are cultivating and the stones that you saw were very complex. You have granite inside and calcium carbonate that came from the bottom of the ocean outside. So this kind of soils gives a lot of texture. When I talk about texture, because for many years we talk in the wine only about flavors and taste, but also the tongue can feel texture. And when the soils come from very rocky, when the wines come from very rocky and very complex soil like we have in the Uco Valley, you can feel a lot of texture. And for me, the fastest way to understand what I'm saying when I say texture, I'm talking about it's like to have sand in the tongue, that you can feel that the tongue has texture, that you can feel is like to put chalk in your tongue. And this comes from the soil of the vineyard. Any question?
I love this wine, Sebastian. I think by making this wine in concrete, you're really redefining what Malbec can be and really creating a question in people's mind as to the limits in terms of freshness and acidity and that lively character. Normally when people talk about Malbec, they're talking about the power and the strength. But I think this wine proves that it can be both powerful and incredibly alive and incredibly fresh. It's stunning.
For me, is this wine a little bit break what was the image of Malbec, because for many years Argentina was very concentrated making Malbec, that I'm not saying that it was good or bad, but it was very involved in the concentration. And I think when you taste this kind of wines, it's completely different. And for me, one thing that I like a lot is that I feel that these wines will age better. It's like when you see it's like a marathonist. Are wines that are more based on the bones than on the flesh. So I feel that when these wines are more based on the bones, are wines that will age very well.
So I kind of feel like Maria Rios here. I'm going to catch her off guard. Christina, can you unmute Maria? Maria, when I see these wines, Maria, unmute yourself. So Maria is the wind beneath Jen's wings at Calvert Woodley. And she is just a fantastic human being who loves to call me very early in the morning and make me smile. And she makes the best empanadas in the world. She is a native Argentinian and loves Zuccardi wines. She's like, she shovels them into Calvert like in a very like secret way. Yeah. But Maria, Can you tell us why empanadas, homemade empanadas like yours, are so amazing with a wine like this?
I was just telling my daughter, they're there with me right now, and I said, oh, I should have made some. It would have been perfect.
You should have left some on my doorstep.
But instead, I made a picada Argentina style.
So what is that? What is that?
Okay. Salamín, pan, quesos, y I just finished the last.
Where is it? The olives.
The last olives. I just finished it. So that would have been the second perfect pairing for all these wines.
Okay, so can you drop that off tomorrow morning around 8 a.m.?
I'll do my best. I'll do my best. Sebastián, can I speak some Spanish just a little?
Sí, sí.
Sebastián, muy orgulloso de ti, muy orgulloso de tus vinos. Siempre estoy empujando, como dice Cris, un poquitito más por ti y te deseo muchísimos éxitos, que siga el éxito de los vinos argentinos.
Gracias, María. Muchas gracias.
De nada. Y salud. Están buenísimos los vinos de hoy. Hey, Christy.
Yeah,
I'm just telling Sebastian that I love his work, that we love his wines, and every day that I can enjoy it, I do. So I appreciate his effort to improve the exposure of our wines to the world, and he's doing a fantastic job.
Yes,
so
salud.
Salud to Sebastian.
Sebastian is the man, and so
you know, Maria, that we are. I think that we are very lucky because we're born in a place, in a very special place, where the conditions that we have give to us the possibility to make, for me, great wines and wines that can be compared with any wine in the world.
Exactly.
So every time that I that I travel or I have the opportunity to talk about the wines, I have to talk about where I live, because if we can make these wines, is because the nature give to us this possibility. And really, Mendoza is not only a nice place because it's beautiful. It's not only a great place to come visit because this mountain is unique, is magic. Also, it's a place that gives us the opportunity to make wines in the highest level. So the first thing that I try to say every time that I get up is thank you. And the second is try to be try to every time bring the message of the place before of the message of my wines, because I feel that the only way that the region can grow is if we have many producers making great wines and communicating the area together. So I'm very lucky where I live.
Well, I agree with you, but I will say the terroir is always important. So the terroir is everything that man doesn't touch, right? So you're talking about the soil and the sun and the aspect. But I'll tell you, my visit to Sebastian's family and Maria, after I had my third son and I was feeling completely overwhelmed, she came over and taught my boys, I have 3 boys, how to cook empanadas. And they still talk about that night, because she like a mama. She just like took them, and Ross and I went out on a date, and she made chimichurri, and they were like, Argentina's awesome. We need to go there like now. And I'm like, but that's the people. You know, the people are a part of wine too. And I think it's really incredible. You know, my visit with Sebastian and also Maria just being so loving has really impacted our family in a way that I didn't expect. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Go ahead.
But every time that you choose a wine, you choose through the place and who makes the wine. It's many times, for example, I have a map of Burgundy. Many times I prefer to drink a village, not the Grand Cru, because I believe more in the producer who make the village. So it's impossible to choose a bottle only talking about the region. Always you need to combine region and who do the interpretation of this place. I believe in this. But I think that the only thing that we can leave to the next generation is the name of a place. Because when you're born in a place that has a name, in a place that has prestige, you have more opportunities for everybody. And my challenge and my way to think is that the only thing that we can leave for the next generation is the name of the place. And the people who born in a place that has a great name in terms of wine has more opportunities. So this is my challenge and this is my way to think. I'm an ambassador of my area and then I'm an ambassador of my family.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Sebastian, the last wine, what are your tasting notes? Concreto.
You know, I'm not the sommelier. I'm a winemaker and I'm a drinker, like I told you. So I will.
Okay.
I
actually,
give a description. I try to say. I like to say, put attention in the texture. For me, this is a wine that will open eyes. That the wine is not only aromas and flavor. The wine has texture, and this texture comes from the soil, and it's what we say usually minerality, because the soils where the grapes are coming are very stony and very mineral. So try to put your attention and also open eyes that Malbec is much more diverse than in general we expect.
So I would love to hear David Cobley, who recently left wine cellars and came to work directly with Zuccardi. And he's a very beautiful person, inside and out. And David, I would love to hear your tasting notes on the Concreto.
Oh, come on, you beautiful person. You're too.
Come on.
You're
Bring it on, baby. Bring it on.
I got a lot of love for you. I got a lot of love for everybody on here. And just let me start by saying thank you for everybody for helping bring this whole event together and enjoy sharing in Sebastian's passion, because he is so passionate about his land and his work and his family and everything that he does. And it's an honor for me to work for him, for he and his family, work with he and his family, as he likes to correct me. They're one of the hardest working families in the whole business. Okay, let's talk about the Concreto. The Concreto to me is like, I remember when the first vintage came, and it was the 2014, and I was like, what in the world is this? As like a very just wine person, I was like, oh my, I've never seen a wine like this. What am I gonna do with it? Where do I place it in my wine spectrum through my wine knowledge and my wine journey? Where do I place it? And I noticed the texture, and it was different. And I know
that's a lot of like North Carolina hands there, buddy.
I know, and
Go ahead.
I'm like maybe the only person in North Carolina that talks with his hands as much as I do, but I do. Yeah, I didn't know where to place this wine in my head, and put it in to how to compare it to the rest of the wines that I had tasted in my wine encyclopedia in my head. Right, it stood out on its own. It was the first thing that I'd ever experienced, and I say experienced because it didn't necessarily fall into a category necessarily of taste with anything else. It has texture. It doesn't have any oak influence, so it has its own personality. It has its own identity, very unique from any other wine I'd ever experienced. And honestly, and I've told Sebastian this, I didn't know how it would really be received in the U.S. I didn't know if people would actually appreciate it and understand it. And they have, and they loved it. And more than loved it, in that they took it and they embraced it and they hugged it and they drunk it and they lifted it up. And they've shown it so much love. And vintage after vintage after vintage, this wine has performed. And people, again, have loved it year after year after year, because it speaks very specifically, because of Sebastian and his team's hard work in the vineyards, it shows something unique. And I think in the wine world, for those of us wine lovers, we're looking for that, something very precise, very unique, that doesn't taste like anything else. You want something that makes you stop in your tracks. When you pour a glass and you taste it, and you get the aromatics and you taste the wine, you experience the wine, you want something that kind of stops you every now and again to be like, oh, wait, this stands out, and this wine does that. And for me, why? Because it has this beautiful violet, lavender, floral nose to it, with crushed rock you can almost smell on the nose, and beautiful purple fruit, red between purple exchanges of fruit there. And on the palate, the texture and the floral notes, the purple flower persists. And but the texture to me, like Sebastian said, this is something that now that I've had the great opportunity to taste so many more wines from the same vineyard site or from the same region of Paraje Altamira, is that it brings you back to texture. And it's been fun to experience a place that now I know in my wine vocabulary is going to have texture, and I can identify with that region knowing that it speaks to texture.
Yeah, it's really delicious. So I don't know if we have extended our welcome with you all, but do you want a little cultural PowerPoint of my trip to Argentina last year? And Christina, I would love it if we're not too scared of being whatever that's called, the horrible thing that happened at the beginning. But it's later now. We've had wine, so we're probably prepared for that. Is it okay to unmute everyone and let the folks from Argentina, like Maria and everyone, just comment as they would like to on my experience visiting the Zuccardi family? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
You okay with that? We're gonna go a little off script. All right. So let's see if I can find my presentation here.
Hey, Christy.
Hi. Okay.
Hi. This is for such a nice experience that I share with my daughter Marina and Melina. We are the 3 M's in the family: Maria, Marina, and Melina. And I just want to say that we really enjoyed this time together and amazing wines. I'm looking forward to many, many, many more.
Oh, that's awesome, Maria. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, I can see you.
Can you see the PowerPoint?
Not yet.
Okay, Christina, I think you have to say I can share the screen.
You should be able to.
Oh, how do I? Hold on one sec. Okay, hold on. Let me go. Okay, hold on, guys. Bear with me. Okay. All right.
There we go.
Can you see it now? Okay.
Oh.
So I would love you all to comment, take everybody off mute. So this is my flight into Argentina, which I was not prepared for. How beautiful are the Andes? I mean, seriously, this is incredible, right?
Amazing.
So anyone want to comment on the Andes and their importance to the area? Sebastian, cue to you.
I talk a lot about the Andes, so I think it's enough. But, you know, the mountain is the key of the place.
So let's talk about the markets in Buenos Aires.
Unique.
Maria, help me out here. What do you think about the markets? Explain what they feel like, what they smell like, what they look like.
They're amazing. You smell of leather and you smell of really hard. The people are super nice. They want to share their life stories with you. So if you're going shopping, you better spend at least an hour with one of the vendors, because he's going to tell you his life story. He's going to tell you where everything came from, and he's going to tell you his life story. So it's really, really, really personal.
And Maria, when you go to Argentina, what do you want to buy?
Leather.
Leather.
And wine. And wine. Wine, I want to wine, but I can only bring 6 bottles at a time. So I try to refrain myself.
You can hide them in the suitcase.
So,
some more.
Veronica.
I brought a case last time without a problem.
Oh, wow, nice.
That's awesome. So, so when we went to Buenos Aires, we rented an apartment right in the middle of town, and I was really caught off guard by the biodiversity even in the city. So the trees were blooming, the shrubs were blooming. People would stop and tell us that the tree that we were in front of was 300 years old. Can anyone speak to that? I mean, it really caught me off guard, because DC is really unique in that we have Rock Creek Forest, and we're spoiled because we have this big natural area, but other cities aren't so much. Can anyone speak to the biodiversity even in the cities in Argentina? Veronica, you're on.
Or Veronica, come on.
Oh, unmute yourself.
Oh, yeah, I can't. The biodiversity of Argentina or Buenos Aires. Can I talk about my
Argentina,
feeling?
I think.
Yes.
I can just talk about my feeling. To give you a little background, I was born in Argentina, but came to the U.S. when I was 7 years old. So my family's there. But when I came back into in the wine world, if you will, I found something that I never really appreciated, I guess, when I left. Argentina has such a rich, vibrant culture, and just, you know, while third world country has such a rich natural resources, everything, you know, the mountains are just, you know, icing on the cake. But when you go to Mendoza, but it's such a rich culture, diverse people, very warm and welcoming people. And as you go into, whether it be Buenos Aires or Mendoza, it's, I remember what I was saying to the team. I felt like this, and I don't know if you can see my hands. And basically, the hands open, which can be like interpreted into many different things, whether it's welcoming, it's bountiful, and bountiful not just in spirit, for those that are feeler people, but bountiful when you put in the wine world as an offering and embracing. I just a very warm culture, very rich. And to go there and experience it, especially with a family like Zuccardi, with Sebastian, Jose Alberto, the family, it's just an amazing experience. And if any of you get a chance to go there, you get a different feel. You have a connection to what you're drinking, and it's just amazing.
So this is a picture that I took in one of the markets. There were many open air markets. What struck me was like really young artisans, and they were all doing things with textiles, with pottery, with different food products like olive oil. And I thought it was really beautiful. And I always find like a sign of a really healthy, you know, place is the young people getting out and being super creative. We went to Mendoza first, which is the original property of the Zuccardi family. And I love that we were coming right at the changing of the seasons. One of the things that struck me was the Zuccardi family really created an amazing biodiversity. Even in their Mendoza property, you had flowers, you had olives, you had grapes, you had lavender, tomatoes, everything. And that was really rosemary everywhere. It just smelled. Sorry.
Christy, we are the biggest organic producer in Argentina. For us, biodiversity is one of the most important things. So the family has the biggest surface under organic cultivation in Argentina, because we believe that natural is better.
And the other thing, like the first thing that drew me, it's not in these pictures, but the first thing that drew me to the Zuccardi family over a decade ago is I read the back of one of their labels. And when they define sustainability, so when you're talking about like environmentally friendly wines, you start with sustainable, and then you move to organic, and then you move to biodynamic in terms of like fanaticism. But one of the things that struck me is the Zuccardi family was the first family to define sustainability as also taking care of their workers and providing housing and education for their workers' families. Sebastian, can you talk a little about that?
In general, I never talk about these kind of things because for me, I believe that the wine is place and people, or people and place. And the only way to make great wines is with great people. So our challenge is how to keep our team very well connecting and very focused on the place and living in the place. And the only way is that if we want to make great wines, we need to develop the areas where we cultivate. So we work a lot in where we have our vineyards, we have schools, we develop cultural centers. We try that the people who live and work with us has most opportunities that we can give them. But I like to say, it's not because we want to be nice people, it's because also the only way to make great wine is with great people. And if you want to have great people, you need to give opportunities. So our challenge is give opportunity of the people who work with us. if we give opportunities to them, we are going to have more opportunities us.
So the next thing that I love to talk about is the first time I met Sebastian's sister, Julia, was in a Whole Foods tasting where we had about 100 cases of wine, and Julia came to be the presenter, and I couldn't find her. And I realized I couldn't find her because the cases were stacked about 7 high, and Julia's like 4'5", and she was lower than the cases. But when I walked up to her and I said, Julia, I'm so sorry I couldn't find you. Her personality is so unassuming, but so lovely. And I see why she's so drawn to food and hospitality, because she really is, I mean, her kindness just radiates. And her humility, which I will say for the whole family, really radiates. So when I went to the winery, you know, everyone talks about being a family-owned and operated property. But when I visited the property, I saw not only Miguel and Sebastian and Jose and Julia, but also Julia's husband. And then the kids were running around. And it was really beautiful to see that in action. So this is Julia at the end of our table when we were visiting. She's beautiful inside and out. This is her husband, who takes an active role in the business as well. He was showing me how they were getting ready to harvest some tomatoes. This is not a great picture of your dad, but it's the only one I took because he's very intimidating, and I kind of snuck a picture. But this shows his passion.
Oh, it's a great picture. He's showing the energy that he has. He's all the time talking and
yes, he's like always like this. Yeah, he's always like this. And then I really think, Sebastian, like I know you touched upon your brother and his project with olive oil, but I think you were quite humble when you did so, because the year that I visited, the olive oil had finished like number 3 in the world, which is insane. So we were seeing the olives like laying, I know very little about olive oil production, but I was really impressed by the taste and the awards that it won, and just seeing the process up front. It was really a beautiful process. And this particular year, Italy had gone through a pretty significant problem with little predators. So it was extra important that Argentina picked up the slack. The Uco Valley, this was my first time to the Uco Valley, and that's the Andes in the background. And this is just in front of where Sebastian built his brand new winery. And when I talk about the family and the projects that they've done, I tell the story in a way where I don't have them listening. But, you know, what I say is that I can't believe that Jose Zuccardi got to a point where he was ready to retire. And Sebastian talked him into reinvesting his entire fortune into another project in the Uco Valley, when they would have been completely fine to keep making money in Mendoza. And I really think that speaks to the, you know, the 30, 40, 50, 60, 70-year-old vision, and how the family thinks of Zuccardi as really their family legacy. And it's really beautiful that they're pushing the limits of what Argentina can do. So this is some of the pictures I took of the winery and also of the vineyards surrounding the winery. And I love that, Sebastian, you did not make the winery ostentatious, but instead chose to blend it into the surroundings of the Andes and the Uco Valley. I know you're crazy about your soil, and I took this picture when you showed me of the incredible soil diversity. And I happen to be a huge soil geek. I just don't talk about that because, you know, it's not becoming for a young woman in the wine business. But this is like an incredible picture of what Sebastian has to offer in terms of the vineyards that they've chosen to cultivate in the Uco Valley. They literally dug like a hole 7 feet into the ground that we all got a chance to go down into. And it was really, really quite stunning. Sebastian, do you have anything to say about this picture? I know you were very happy when I took it.
This is a very special place that the name is Gualtallari. It's one of the vineyards in the north of the Uco Valley, and what you are seeing there is a very particular geology that we call caliche. That is a compaction of calcium carbonate that come from the bottom of the ocean and sand. And this is quite unique for wine areas. So I believe that, wine is landscape, weather, and soil, but the soil is very, very important. And I have been spending a lot of time looking for the best soils in the best areas.
So Luz, I'm going to call on you again. So you never know when you're going to be called on in this little program. So unmute yourself. Okay. So tell us why we should all go out tomorrow and either make or buy empanadas.
Why? I think it's amazing. They taste amazing. They're light. They're good. You can put whatever stuff in it you want. So if you're vegetarian, you could just put veggies. If you like meat, you can put beef. If you like chicken, so it's like it fits every flavor.
Maria, what is the Argentinian cowboy called?
Jesus.
Gaucho, right?
Gaucho.
Gaucho. Come on, mama. So they treated us to a gaucho day where this very handsome gentleman was like taking us through the foothills of the Andes. And I have to say, I see the little dog down here. It was one of my favorite days of my entire life. Like, does this look like a mom of 3 children? Like, I was so free.
It was super happy. You look really free.
And this is our gaucho and his son. And at one point, I have to tell you, this is probably not appropriate for the tasting, but the gaucho, because he couldn't be any sexier, actually saw the puppy like get stepped on by the horse and put the puppy on his horse. And we were like, seriously, like, don't do that. Like, it cannot get any cuter than this. Like, all the American women were like swooning.
Oh.
You know, in this picture, come back to the picture. Okay. The gaucho is Walter. And the property that he has is at 1,700 meters of altitude. And we are planting a vineyard with Walter. So now it's not only a gaucho, it's also a viticulture guy.
Walter was the man. Walter was amazing, amazing. Sebastian, how was my slideshow?
Fantastic. Very great. I want to go to the mountains now, right now.
Right?
Well, where are you right now, Sebastian? Are you in Mendoza?
No, I'm in one of the vineyards of the family, 30 minutes from Mendoza.
Oh, okay. Well, I hope to see you someday in person. It was an amazing tasting. And I'm looking forward to more wine from you. And I want to wish you all the best, as always. So I hope to see you someday in person in Washington. Come and visit us.
Yeah. Muchas gracias.
De nada, al contrario.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for everyone. I hope you enjoyed the tasting. Sebastian, you are incredible. And I feel so privileged to have spent the evening with you. I think, you know, this period has brought a lot of heavy feelings and a lot of change. But the good to come out of it is the opportunity to connect on such an intimate level with people like you, Sebastian, and to get to hear the story of Jose and Julia and Miguel and you with such an intimate group of people through Calvert Woodley and the Embassy of Argentina is a really unique experience that I don't think we would have gotten without this crisis. So there's always a silver lining. And I really appreciate everyone who participated in this, and Christina for your tenacity in getting this to happen. So cheers to you all. If you have any questions, you can email Jen or me. My email is christy.delovich@winebow.com. You can email Jen. You all have Jen's email, or Luz, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have about Argentina or Zuccardi or Sebastian or anything at all. So I really appreciate all of your time, and thank you so much. So cheers.
Thank you, Christy.
Thank you.
You're amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank
Have a great
you.
day.
You too.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Gracias, Seba.
Right.